And we're live. It's Sam and Michael and Adrian. And yeah, Adrian, I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, I've paired with you a couple of times on the Async UI. I guess, Michael, you haven't really seen this part of the AsyncVoter project, is that right?
I looked briefly at it. I think I looked at it on someone's GitHub.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have you just looked at the back end, or have you taken a look at the front end as well? It's like called Async UI.
Yeah, I looked a little bit at it, but I could use a walkthrough, like I said.
Yeah, okay. So, Adrian, I'll put you on central camera, and you can share your screen and talk us through it.
Okay. Was there anything that didn't make sense when you looked at it? Do you have any questions on it so far, Michael?
Not really. It just looked like trying to remember it. It looked like it wasn't actually even doing it. At the time I looked at it, it wasn't even making the call.
Okay. Okay, so you looked at it quite a while ago, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just stubbed with some kind of data.
Yeah, that's true. That is correct.
And so it was probably a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
We merged in a couple of things since then, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, share with you guys, and you can see. Can you see everything here? Okay, so there's two main components that you need to look at when you're doing this: stories and story. These are the two main components. Story clearly being the shout-out component of stories. But when you have stories, you can see here that it's just rendering an unordered list, which is story items. And inside story items, which is this variable here, it's just returning a new component in there, which is story with these properties. So key, the story, with all the ID and everything inside it, and then an update function. And I'll get to why I needed this in a second. So I'm just mapping over all of the ones we currently have, which is in this.state. And I set the state up here when I do update component, when I get all the stories. I get all the stories, and I set the state to the response in here. I'll get up to this line in a second. This is what I just wrote a few seconds ago. But then we have the state now in the stories, and then in here, it's all of that being rendered. So yeah, everything with the title and average vote, and like buttons with the on-click events that allow you to submit a vote like that. So what I just tried to do a second ago, let me try to go back into my screen.
So when you load it one time, it's going to load the story, and that's it?
Yeah, so when you load it, what I'm struggling to do now is update.
It's dynamic, right?
Yeah, make it dynamic. I mean, that's what React is good for. That's why I wanted to use it, because it's a lot more easier to have dynamic content with React. And I'm struggling now to, as soon as a vote is submitted, re-render those stories. And that's why I had things up here like this.props.update, which just calls this update component function, which does another get request for the stories, and then it's meant to set the state, which re-renders all those story items again, which is down here. That's what I've been struggling with for the past like half an hour, and I'm getting really annoyed with myself.
So, are we ultimately thinking of WebSockets, or what are we thinking?
No, I think that's very complicated too much. All I wanted to do was re-render the component as soon as the vote is submitted.
So when you submit your own vote, then you get to see what's different about it.
I say that again, sorry?
I said, like, so say that someone else submits a vote while you're deciding. You don't see that until you submit your vote.
I haven't really got that far yet with it. I'm not on that level of thinking just yet.
Okay.
I'm still, I'm still in one bit at a time here. I'm not really planning it too far ahead.
Okay. I guess, Adrian, you're kind of like at this, like the sequence of things that we've gone through is one, getting it to be able to like receive some data from the back end and display it. And then what we did after, and the next one was, can we submit some data to the back end? And so those sort of two milestones are done.
Yeah.
And now I think, the third one you're just focusing on here is like, can you have the component re-rendered so it's not stale data?
Yeah, exactly. Just so it makes it more responsive. So that when you click a vote, then you can see the vote has been updated.
Yeah, and it's just sort of in a process of experimenting with the React functionality rather than necessarily working to particular sets of stories at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So what I was doing just a second ago was calling localhost rather than master base seahorse, because but for the time being, I'm just going to show you what we have now. So I just made these two stories to our endpoint here, and then got these to render, so you can see what's going on now. We have, our votes there, our average vote, and then these are the same story, but it's just for me to work with right now. So when I click vote 2, we would expect votes to increase to 5, and then average vote to be something like, I don't know, 3 or something. So I click 2, thanks for your vote. And yeah, it just doesn't respond at all. So then I have to kind of refresh, and that's 3.2, and the votes have gone up to 5. So it looks like this is now working. I had a lot of problems with this today. So for the time being, I want to continue working with this, and then, as you said, I'm going to make sure that I have the node server running, which is here, and then call post 3000 and post to that instead of this endpoint here, which can be a bit flaky sometimes.
Yeah. The immediate thing that I would say there is you've got some code in there that attempting to do the updates. When you do the thing now, have you got the console open? Are you getting JavaScript errors when if you leave the console open?
Yeah, so
you clear that. If you then just hit that, rather than worrying about what the code is, just hit one of the votes now.
Okay, so I'm gonna do vote 5 on this one. Average vote should be 3, and let's see what happens. Can we probably force update one? Okay, so I know what this is. So if you go into the code in stories, I need to set this to that because of JavaScript. So that.force update, and so now that really shouldn't error. So let's go and make this vote 5. Okay, so no console errors on that one.
Right, and we didn't see any change there. We should have seen that. And if you now refresh the page,
so now it should be 5 and now 3.8.
Can you show me the code where you think that you're making
yeah.
up?
So I mean, the way I understand React is as soon as we let's go back on the story. So as soon as we send the vote, this stuff happens. You do this.set state, sets the vote to the vote params, which you get up here, and then you make the post request to this endpoint, and then it does all this stuff. And then as soon as that's done, as soon as the database is updated, I want to call this.prop.update, which is just an update method on stories, because I wanted all of these stories to kind of just re-render with the updated data. And so that is now calling this function, update component. And when I did this, we're just doing another get request for the data. Sorry about these emails. Do another get request for this data. And then as soon as the response comes back, you do this that.set state, stories with the response. Now my understanding of React is as soon as set state is called, then the render function is called again. But for some reason that's not happening.
Do you want to go into the browser and set a debugger point?
I mean, yeah, what do you think is the sensible place to put that?
Somewhere inside that update component to see if we're actually calling it?
I'm sure it's being called. Yeah, let me try it. I can do like a console.log. And I just say update.
I think if you have debugger tools installed, you can also usually debug JavaScript in the console.
Yeah, okay, well for that, I'm going to
Chrome
do this first and make sure that...
Try the console. The thing that's on my mind is, you're submitting the vote. In order for you're submitting the vote, all the stuff that's being displayed is being displayed that we've pulled it off the server, right?
Yeah.
So the update component, right? This is, we're in stories here. This is like the normal process of rendering, right? This here, you've got there, you've got it's line 10, line 28, I guess. For, you've got the render. So that's the normal rendering of this stories component. And the normal process of rendering will be to come through and get, it will hit the endpoints, get the state and so on. But when you do the post,
Yeah.
Where like the post element, show us just like that we got the send vote there. That's that now a different file that you were just in there? You just jumped from, was it?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was in stories, and then you mentioned the post, and I went to the post here.
Yeah. So here, so like what we kind of want is, I guess it's either that like at the point at which the vote is sent, that we trigger an update, or we expect the React component to automatically know how to update. I mean, you've got this props update here.
Yeah.
Like that's just gonna edit this. Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of seeing there like there's a difference between there's a story component.
Yeah.
Right. Which it's like sent this update when it's doing this props.
When it says this.props update, that's calling the update component method in its parent, which is stories.js.
Okay, right. So then what we would be hoping was that it would do another request to the server, and okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
sorry,
like another GET request.
Yeah, go on. Let's see if that console log statement has come through.
Okay, so that console log statement, just to check that this is being called, which is meant to do the GET request again with our updated stories, and then set the state, which re-renders the component again. So let's just check now. I'm going to vote 2. Thanks for your vote. And update component was called. So we know it at least gets to here, and then it's doing the GET request.
Well,
I think not updating the component.
Well, I think what Michael is saying, like there's a very powerful. If you click on the sources tab there next to the console tab, and you then click on the static thing, like on the there, like and in JS, you should in principle. Maybe not that one. Hold on. So scroll down in there. Maybe it's under no, or under media.
Oh, do you not have source maps installed?
What's the thing we said, Michael?
So you're using like a Webpack or something?
Yeah. This is using Create React App, which is just a simple with Webpack.
When you bundle it like that, there's something called a source map, I think.
Source map.
Script.
Yeah, just click on where it says bundled.
Actually, okay. So my point is that bundles kind of a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
And I think some way to actually make the browser, at least in development mode, view it as the source files.
Yeah, I wonder if Webpack, if you click on that thing underneath that says Webpack.
Right here, yeah.
And open some of those. I mean, just as sort of a possible thing. Let's see, and then under source.
Is it right here?
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So click on like stories, still stories.js there.
Okay.
But it might be like not very. Yeah. So I guess it's been. Yeah, there would be a setup to kind of, as Michael's saying, like a source map that would allow you. Oh no, there you can see where your update is.
Yeah. Oh wow, this is pretty cool.
There's a mapping between ECMAScript 6 and ECMAScript that runs in your browser.
Yeah.
Because they're not fully supported yet, but yeah.
Oh, this is cool. So this is the code that the browser is
actually on it.
Yeah, that's kind of been compiled. The React has been compiled into that.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I like this.
I mean, the interesting thing there is, I mean, probably
anywhere in there you can press next to the number. Like, see the numbers on the side, like 51 or whatever. If you press there, it sets a breakpoint.
Oh, really? Okay. That's cool.
And then when you're, like, say that you click 51, right?
Yeah.
And press the button. Press a button.
So I'm going to press 2 to vote for 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome.
You're hooked on the debugger.
Okay, that's cool now.
So you could, in principle, be inspecting different aspects of the system there. I mean, the interesting thing about at that point is, it gets to that update component called. Does it actually make the request as well?
Okay, so how do I kind of skip through it? Do I press here?
Well, you would, and that would step over. The thing is, of course, because the JavaScript is asynchronous, it will sort of step over, and we won't be able to tell from this that the if you click a breakpoint on line 54,
yeah,
right, And then if rather than that one that you had your mouse over, that's like the step over. If you put it, click the play button that's next to it.
This one.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I click play. Okay, so it has got to the part where
It has it there. Yeah. So even there, you could be inspecting. You can see, like, if you see, like, in the right-hand side, it's got like the response thing. You can actually inspect further over. No. In like the right.
Sorry, I had a call. If you go into the console.
Yeah.
So sorry, Michael. You just. Michael. Well, all right. Well, I'll butt out, and Michael, you carry on. I was just in the middle
of. You can run arbitrary code in the console from the context that you're in. But go on, Sam.
I was just gonna show him like the thing on the far right, but no, that's good. It's good. You.
Oh, do you mean this, Sam? Response here.
Yeah, you can spy on variables, but you can also just execute arbitrary code in the console, which is kind of
Oh yeah, but now I'm seeing the response here. And I can see that I'm getting some text back, which is like our stories with the ID and stuff. Okay, so we're getting a response back. At least we know. In here.
Are you getting it back with your current?
Good point.
With your vote.
Yeah. So okay, so this is 584 updated then, and it looks like the size hasn't changed. The size is 0 for some reason. When we can clearly see in the browser that it's not that. Like both the size and the V, like the vote are 0. I don't know why that is. But yeah, my confusion here stems from the fact that I'm calling setState, which calls render, and it's not re-rendering. That's why I had the force update in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess Sam had other ideas. But
not particularly. I was just showing the one thing, and you would, and as you can equally inspect all of the stuff with the console, or kind of that. It's, for complex objects, it's sometimes nice to do that thing on the right. I wasn't going in any particular different direction there.
Right. Okay.
But so the what seems to be the case is that this.
I also see on line 53 you're getting from the DRE app, but somewhere else I saw you were pushing to localhost.
No. So I was at the start of this call because I was trying to set up all of this locally rather than calling these ones. But in stories now I'm doing post to masterbase seahorse cod app, DRE app, and masterbase seahorse cod app, DRE app. So it is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're definitely the same, the ones I'm getting and posting from too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, you're not getting back a response from the server that's updated. Maybe.
Let's try one thing. Let's go into. Okay, so I'm gonna yank this.
Maybe it's the asynchronous nature. Is that a Node app in DRE? What is that?
Yes, this is a Node app.
I'm wondering whether it's the asynchronous nature of Node.
Yeah.
Like, is it rendering before? Like, is it rendering like okay before it's actually updated its database?
Yeah, it renders just fine actually. So if I just do a request now again, just wait a bit.
No, I mean when you vote to that endpoint, the API endpoint, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does it write to the database?
I'm not exactly sure of that because I haven't done much of the backend stuff on this.
Okay. Well, there's the possibility that it renders before it actually, I don't know.
It renders before it's actually been saved. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if that's going on, then you could have a race condition between.
Yeah, that's a possibility actually. Do you agree with that, Sam? Is that?
Yeah. That's. I mean, I guess what Michael's saying there is that you can be submitting the vote, and that you're making the request for the thing so fast that it's still getting like the data before it's changed.
Yeah.
Right.
In other words, if you post a vote and it says if it says like submit that to the database asynchronously, and then no matter what happens, just say okay.
Yeah.
Then you could still have a database transaction going on, and it comes back to the React app and says okay. Then the React app says get me the stories, and it does another database transaction, and now you have two database transactions racing each other.
Right, I see. Okay, so it's a bit more complicated than I thought.
Win, I guess.
So when you inspected the response that you got like there, that's what you were seeing, that the stories data was not updated.
Yeah. But what
I would be tempted to do is put a timeout in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Go on, Adrian. What were you going to say?
Oh, within the get, you mean?
Well,
so
you could
between the get and the set state, but these shouldn't. These are called asynchronous anyway. So as soon as it's got the response and it's ended, it's only then once it's got the response that we're calling set state.
Well, I guess what you kind of want actually is not so much here, but if you go into the story.js.
What I would say is in update component. Go on, Sam.
I was going to say in story.js.
Yeah, that makes sense. In story.js.
Right.
When we're posting, you mean?
Yeah, like so you're going to do the post.
Yeah.
You kind of like maybe want to have a
timeout.
You want to wait before you call props update. Like you want to insert like an artificial.
No, I think I did this before. So I wanted to put this in here, like in the end function, so that as soon as the post is finished, then it calls update.
Oh, and what is it? Why have you got the props update outside of the post function?
Yeah, no, it should be in there. Like thinking about it, but
that's probably problematic.
Yeah, no, it should be in here.
Yeah, just try, without doing anything else, just try it now like that.
Okay, hold on a second. All right, so let's just inspect the console, see what's going on. Ignore this; it's a silly React error. So we have 5 votes, average 3.2. Let's bring that down with a vote of 1. Can it read props of undefined? Yeah, it should be that.
That props, yeah.
I need to set it up here. Let that equals this. So happy doing this. Let's try that again. Back away, debugger.
Yeah, so you might want to take the debug steps off. Well, up to you. You can keep them on. You may find them useful for.
I'll take them off for now, just because we're logging. Well,
right.
We'll see what's going on first.
I mean, we could also, if you have the network tab open, you can also inspect the data that's coming backwards and forwards when we run it here.
Nice.
But,
okay, so now we have vote 6 on 2.83. Let's bring it back up. Do vote 5. This should increase to 7. Votes 7. Please re-render.
So it's not rendering. Is it? Click the network tab.
Okay, so when I did that,
see there, like.
So I'm making that request.
So you could look at that if you click on that last request.
Which one's the last one? Is this?
I think it's the bottom one.
This one is the post. Oh, that's the get, isn't it?
That's the get that's trying to see the results of that, and you can look at the response there, and you could see the. I guess the thing is, we're actually for this. The thing is for this actually in this view, you're not seeing any of the votes, are you?
No. Well, I'm getting confused here because when I go to, yeah, I'm getting a bit confused now because there seems to be no votes on any of these stories.
No, I think just the stories thing by default doesn't return any votes, so it's possible that that's kind of been misdiagnosed there. I mean, it still might be the case. Go back to that place.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, in the code. Go back in the code.
To the post.
To this, yeah, story.js, the post bit.
There we are.
Right. So, like, yeah. So I mean, you could still introduce a delay there on the like in between the lines 20 and 21.
Sorry about my relative line numbers in Vim.
That's all right. I was having fun working out the line numbers.
No, but can you do like because I tell my colleagues to do this, or like 5 down or 5 up, or
well, see there between 3 and 4 down.
Okay, yeah, I see.
I mean, basically, although we don't have the URLs or the response from the server is not telling us what votes it thinks it's available at that point. But though, isn't the issue there? Like, how are you? Wait a sec. That request that we're doing, like in stories.js, go to
request.
In stories.js, like here, we're asking for the stories, right?
Yeah.
But so you want it to like dynamically update the votes, right? But it's not grabbing any new vote information in this update component. How is it getting the values of the votes?
Yeah, good point. Okay, so so the current vote is a state there, and let's see if I'm updating the current vote anywhere. Okay, so the state for the vote is set here.
Right, and where do you woke up? I mean, like, so here, you see this on line 23 there, or 23 down from where you are. It says fetch number of votes.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe is the problem that in, like, you're only fetching the number of votes on component did mount, right?
Yes, yes.
If you go scroll up a little bit here.
Yeah.
So in this send, like, so we've got send vote, and you're kind of like doing that props update. But the fetch number of votes is like, I mean, do you not? Well, I think what you want to do is you want to kind of like have what's happening there on line 7 and 8 down. You effectively, rather than doing props update, because what you're doing here, assuming it's actually working, and it looks like it is doing the hit, is that props update that you've currently pointed to with your cursor. What that's doing is it's causing the main stories thing to re-go, like to re-render, and it re-renders those things. But does that cause this component did mount for the individual stories? I'm not. You could put a console log in there, component did mount, to see if it does, because that's the. But what we're not seeing in that network list is a request for the full set of stories and votes.
And the votes, yeah. No, I think that's the mistake I'm making. I think we're getting closer in that sense.
Let's see. So like save that and then go through and then okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm meant to be doing. Okay, so we see if component did mount is being called.
Mm-hmm.
So here, and these are taking a while to update, but they should soon. You see this average vote is 0 now, and it's going to change. I really need to start doing this locally.
Yeah. So is that then it being slow? Yeah, it's if it's going to randomly introduce like too many delays.
Let's try again. Yeah, that's so annoying. I'm expecting votes to. We know the votes are more than 0.
But independently, you don't even need to have them come in. Just click one of the votes.
Okay, let's see.
Because
so click on.
Yeah,
there we go.
I mean, we don't need them in order to test our hypothesis here.
Yeah.
Which is, so just click any vote button.
Okay, so voting 3.
And it didn't print.
No.
And it looks like component did mount was not called.
I think that's when you originally mount the.
Yeah, so I think there's like a life cycle. And so component will mount, it'll be called. So what we want is a different element of the life cycle. I think, don't you want to replace component will mount with the word render there?
Well, we have the render method down here.
Okay. Well, why don't we move that componented stuff into the render method? Like, why do we want that? We don't want that only to be run on the first occasion. We want that to be run anytime it renders, don't we?
So you say you want me? Sorry, I can go on.
I said that's kind of. Go on. I mean, I think it's kind of costly to do network transactions every time you want to render it.
Well, that's the way it's set up at the moment. I think let's not worry too much about the prematurely optimizing it when we're trying to work out if we can get it to work at all. So I would take.
Well, I mean, here's what we can do actually, because we want this to be called as soon as the post request is done. So
yeah, you could kind of try and explicitly call component mount if you want.
Yeah. So what I can do is fetch votes and then do this dot fetch votes like that.
You could do that, although I don't know that will necessarily cause it to re-render, will it? I mean, you can check.
But I'm thinking it will, because when I call this dot fetch number of votes, this average vote, it sets the state.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
Does the get request for both of them.
Okay.
And then it sets on new state. So I'm guessing this might.
Yeah, okay, we'll give it a go. Give it a go.
Okay, so I've got the login there, fetch votes. I'm going to refresh.
Don't wait, just hit the button.
Okay, so vote 1. Fetch votes. Did that?
Look, it gave you a 3.
Okay, so now I'm going to do vote 2. This should go to 10. Yes, perfect. That was the problem. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's exactly the problem. I know what I was doing wrong now. Yeah, I wasn't fetching. Yeah, the mistake I made was when I called this dot update in here and called update component. Yeah, I was setting the state, but I was updating the stories but not getting those votes.
Right, but in principle, I mean, the other approach there is that you could make it like if you had moved that stuff into the render, then you could have it that there would. Then I think that approach would have worked, because it would have been like a cascade rendering, right? Because one sits inside the other. I mean, Michael makes the point. You've probably got a better thing there that you're explicitly doing the network request in a situation where you know you've been an update. But I think that the approach you were trying would have worked had it been that the component did mount, like was the stuff that in there was in render, then that also would have worked.
So you talk about everything that's in fetch votes now. These two methods should.
Not that they should, but if they had been, right, then the approach that you were taking would have worked.
Yeah,
I hypothesize. But the way we have it set up now is probably, well, it's then there's a bigger issue of like, the app objectives. This is the thing now, is that in this state, I mean, this is why I think the whole Agile Ventures working in the context of user stories and so on is so important, because what is the right or wrong approach here actually depends on what are the objectives of the high level app, right? Yeah. So if the objective of the high level app is like, this is an admin screen and you want to give the admin user live updates of exactly where the vote is in play, then that's one thing, versus is this a system for people to submit their votes, and we want to conceal the vote from them, and then a different set of constraints are in play, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, as Michael was talking about earlier on, like the next step would be to have some kind of a constraint in there, so that when you have submitted a vote, you can't submit a vote twice on the same story.
Right. Although I think even before doing that, though, the danger of you can take the approach there to say like, oh right, yeah, what is the next constraint? But whether that constraint is required or not depends upon the bigger set of user stories. Like I think the process that we've been sort of following here is that you've absorbed kind of a general sense of how AsyncVoter works.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're kind of channeling that into certain bits and pieces in here, but the sets of stories and their interrelationship are currently implicit in your mind. I mean, or maybe they're explicit in your mind, but they're in your mind and they're not external, and they're not visible for the team to share and debate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know. I've been about that problem for some time.
But it's a perfectly, and it's not, it hasn't been a problem so far, because what we've done is we've now achieved those three things in terms of, one, being able to read data via React from a remote API. We've been able to post some data from React to a remote API, and now, debug an issue of keeping it rendered. The temptation might be to now say, oh yes, here's this constraint and we'll just add this. I think going forwards, it might be time to put this spike aside and just think about, what are the set of user stories that we want to work against, and should we try harder to test drive going forward? And the result of that might be, well, let's carry on spiking with these few different things. It's not like we're not saying anything has to be done one or the other, but I think it's often good to have a pause and reflect about what happened next and how that fits into the strategy of the bigger project.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the purpose of me for getting on this project was to learn a lot about React and more about REST APIs and all that kind of stuff. And I've learned a tremendous amount just by doing that. Like, it's been really, really helpful. But maybe it is, right to kind of pause now, reflect, and try and get other people on board with this, because I've been kind of a lone ranger with this React spike, and I think maybe are you suggesting that I start sending out issues and putting up stories for the UI and getting people involved in that?
I mean, I think the thing that we, potentially, I think what we might do, and we can actually do it right now, is have kind of a little. I mean, the interesting thing is from the if we look at the, well, I'll stop. I'll say one thing, and hopefully going forward, you can continue to learn more about React and so on. The kind of, in terms of like what the customer for the AsyncVoter is Agile Ventures, and so we've also got this Slack bot, and probably the most immediate need for the Slack bot is to allow more than one vote to take place. I guess actually, have you seen the way the Slack bot is working?
Yeah, I've been taking a look actually. I think it's pretty interesting. Where did I see it today? It was up here, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think we were running one in. We ran one in. Where did we run one in? Oh well, we're certainly we've got one kind of going at the moment in local support, and
AsyncVoter right here. It's kind of working as well.
Yes, and so you've got one, the AsyncVoter. Yes, and so that's an earlier one, and it's basically we got one instance running on an AWS box, which is, and it's just Node, and it's using this botkit thing, and it's actually been working reasonably well, and so it's sort of from my point of view as the sort of product owner. The thing that we have now is that it blocks, right? So if the fact that we've got this local support vote in progress means that if somebody tried to start a new vote in AsyncVoter, it would kind of spam out our data, and like there's kind of competition for this limited resource. So and we have a limited number of bots that we can have on our current tier that we're on Agile Ventures. So if we go to, you were looking at the boards there. Now, of course, none of this means that you should necessarily suddenly be working on a Slack bot, but the thing to be doing is thinking about, bigger picture, how it all fits together. So
I thought the long-term goal for it was to have it on the Agile Ventures site itself. Was that a plan?
Well, I think it would be like I don't know that in my conception of it that there was a necessity to have it on the Agile Ventures site. I think that the underlying goal is that with our distributed project teams, there are many people who are not available at the same time, and our original setup or the sort of traditional thing of people getting together in scrums and sprint planning meetings and so on, and then doing lots of voting, has kind of, some projects still do that, but it can be challenging to get done. I kind of came up with the concept of, we could do asynchronous voting, and we're sort of running it manually as a way. In particular, it was a local support project. Like we had, there was no voting, almost no voting going on, because there was nobody coming into the the meetings that I was.
Well, I had
Go on, Michael.
actually proposed it originally for website 1 to avoid the long meetings on Friday. And then I think you adopted it for local support, and then you had the idea of the bot.
Right. So there was also, we were doing lots of, as Michael says, we were doing these long meetings, and it was fairly clear that that was not a favorite, mainly because I talk too much, but also because
I think, yeah, the original motivation was that we went through these stories, and probably 80% of them kind of everyone agreed very quickly. I was like, can't we just deal with this like asynchronously, you know, in the chat?
Right. And there's various other, you know, there's at least 15 other bots that have been created to do planning poker online and in Slack and in different IRC and what have you, but and in Whobot. But they generally seem to revolve around everybody being present to make the vote and like to have it done, rather than the kind of them being this long running asynchronous vote. So the Slack is sort of where a lot of the projects live. So in some ways, the kind of priority interface is Slack. I think where I see a web interface being useful is for kind of the management of the bots. Like you can do a certain amount of, like I can talk to the bot in a particular channel. I can ask for help and this, that, and the other, and it will. I don't know if I actually deployed the help feature yet. So you could do a certain amount of management through text chat in Slack. But so, for example, if you want to then see, you know, the history of the votes or what's the vote that's currently in progress, then I think that's where a web interface that would be, you know, visible potentially on the AsyncVoter site would make sense. Does that make sense? Adrian?
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
And it's, I mean, I think the way that you've been driving with your interface is you've been imagining people actually submitting their votes through that interface, which they could be doing, but I could sort of imagine, like, you know, you want to allow, you know, an admin to over. I mean, the other thing particularly that's difficult in Slack is kind of authorization and so on. I mean, I guess you could link it just to the user accounts, but yeah, I think that the idea of the people kind of doing their majority, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sort of assuming that people are probably, you know, if they find out about the vote in Slack, then they probably want to submit their votes in Slack. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, they probably don't want to do it. Don't want to have it in two separate places. Like, if they see the vote in one place, they want to submit the vote in the same place, as you said.
But so that's why in my mind I'm thinking about the Reactor interface being an admin interface as a kind of for the power user, so to speak. So that the I mean, what? Just sensible to sketch it in. I
mean, it could even, like, the React interface. I have an idea. Like, it could literally. This is getting kind of far ahead, but the React interface could actually offer something for the PM, in that he could schedule votes. Like, say, this is the first. He could go into his React interface and put things in the queue.
Right.
Say story 1, story 2, story 3, story 4, and then the bot picks things up off that queue, that like line,
right,
and runs them, and then as they're resolved, it then puts the next story up. Yeah.
I mean, I think what, and that's not so crazy. I think the thing that what I would really like to see is, I mean, maybe this will be like incredibly intimidating for people or what have you, but what we tend to have on these projects is we've got these backlogs of stuff, and there's this kind of this metric that, or heuristic that you shouldn't start working on them until they've been voted on. So what we kind of want is, you know, ongoing voting on stuff. You know, like if the bot detects that that there hasn't been anything voted on for a while, and particularly if the channel is inactive, you know, it should. You know, the simple heuristic would be alternately pick things off the top or the bottom of the backlog. As Michael's saying there, an extra finesse would be allowing the you know, the admin to kind of set up a priority ordering and say, you know, okay, I want votes to be done in this order. When this vote is finished, you know, wait for another hour, and if there's no activity in the Slack channel, start another vote. So it would kind of be serving as a sort of a motivating impulse to get all of the stories voted on. And of course, if it's like starting to say voted on, then that's a relevant story, then that prompts people to clear out those old backlog stories that are no longer relevant and tries to keep the whole project in good shape, if that makes sense, Adrian.
Well, so you have a way to like monitor the level of activity on Slack and then post votes according to the level of activity?
Yeah, this is now me starting to add additional fear. I'm sort of imagining the bot, and you know, if it just like as soon as one vote finished, it immediately did the next thing and immediately did the next thing and so on. You know, people get pretty irritated with it soon. We had an experience with, there was another bot for running daily stand-ups that was just like really irritating like that. So we, I mean, you can sort of, don't worry too much about that. I think that the important thing is, independently of whether it's measuring the Slack activity or it's measuring how many hours since the last vote or was there an update during the last 24 hours, those are all sort of separate special features. I think that the, you know, I only mention it partly because Michael mentioned it there, but so the kind of thing that we might see in the admin interface is something like this. So you can imagine for individual project manager seeing like, these are my sets of things that have been voted on recently. This is the results for them. I mean, it's kind of like a dashboard for what's happening with the voting. And you could imagine the admin of the Agile Venture site sort of having that across all different projects, or just for an individual project, being able to see, you know, what was voted on recently. And because what will happen with the Slack stuff is that the history of the voting will kind of be there, but it'll be mixed in with all this, that, the other stuff. So if it was like, oh, what was that, you know, vote we had the other day? I mean, I don't know that it's such a compelling, you know, like this is kind of like the whole thing here is kind of a nice to have rather than a must to have, at least at the moment.
Yeah.
That right now, what I'm thinking about must to have is like, we've got a real problem with the fact that we can only run the bot in one channel.
Yeah.
But to the extent that we would have a admin interface, then, you know, that could be handy for reviewing, you know, the activity that the bot's been supporting.
Yeah, no, I do really like this actually, because you have the stories in a list, just like we have currently, with the description and the URL and the ID and etc., how many votes it has. But then when you submit through Slack, there must be some way in the Slack bot to recognize the name of who voted.
Yeah,
and then when it gets that vote, it just posts to our admin and then shows the name of who voted through Slack.
Yes. Well, so yes, indeed. And so I mean, that's the thing that the AsyncVoter backend currently doesn't support, is it doesn't record who that is. So that's another thing which is sort of a key issue for the Slack bots. So one is supporting multiple channels. Two is persisting the information. Like if the Slack bot goes offline, right, like here, it will lose the information about what Michael and I voted. So what the AsyncVoter should be doing is persisting that information. Now, it could persist it directly to a local MongoDB or what have you, but it's more fun, I think, and it's the microservices thing. If it submits that data to the AsyncVoter backend and stores it along with the username, and then your React interface can pick up the data that the Slack bot has submitted to the back end, and we have this sort of microservice architecture where we've got our back end storage with the RESTful API, we've got the Slack bot talking to that, and then we've got whatever other apps, you know, and this sort of guy saying he wants to do Angular. I said, well, hey, we'll make an Angular app that hits our REST API. Maybe we should move them on to project scope or something. Anyway.
That does sound really good, actually. I really like that. So then you wouldn't, like, no votes would be done through the React interface. It would be done through Slack, and then Slack would help persist the data to Mongo, and then we would use the React interface to get that information on onto a UI.
I think that could be a potential way forward, but I think to be really agile, we need to get the voting in multiple channels up first.
Yeah, I think that's
kind of see like what the fire, I guess, being under fire from experience actually says.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think
what the next pressing need is.
Yeah, once we get that working, then that will deliver all sorts of things. So I mean, the question sort of becomes for you, Adrian. Like, I mean, you know, from a kind of like immediate need point of view. Like, I mean, I've got to go into this other meeting now. But so, for, and also Chaiwa is here as well. Chaiwa Barian, hey. I mean, I think you guys can carry on pairing in another channel. I mean, you could be. I can see different ways. You could say, Adrian, that you're like, you want to stay with the React interface, and you know, let's work on some user stories for what an admin interface would look like. So, you know, user stories. So, as an admin, so I can see recent votes. I would like to see summaries of the recent votes, and like we you know, knock out a few stories about what the admin interface would require, and then start, you know, doing behavior-driven, test-driven development off those. Or we've got, you know, clear stories for the AsyncVoter itself, or the bot. If you're interested in working on the Slack bot, I mean, you know, you and Michael could have a stab at this, or some combination of the different ones of you at doing that. I mean, the point we were at there was of trying to get Cucumber working, or this version of Cucumber called Yada working, so that we can kind of actually test drive the kind of the you know, having the multiple parallel votes working. So yeah, it's sort of up to you guys, particularly you Chaiwa, are you free for pairing now, or you just watching?
Not really. Just DM to see what's happening.
Yeah, cool. Adrian, I think I get the sense you've got another hour. Michael, are you still free? I imagine you'd rather pair than come into the beta starters meeting.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, what would we pair on, Adrian?
Well, I'm only free for like another 30 minutes actually.
Okay.
But I don't know. What's the simplest thing we can do for the next 30 minutes? that can make us feel like we're adding progress.
Well, I'll tell you something that you might actually do in 30 minutes. That we've got a very simple regex bug for this. We do have some. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say it is what we have out, and async. What is it? It's not it's Slackbot. Basically, we have an open pull request on here that adds unit and integration tests, and kind of it's got like a start of an outline of the Cucumber tests on it. And so, yeah, it would either be work quickly to see. I mean, probably in half an hour, all it's going to be is just to introduce you, Adrian, to this framework.
Yeah, no, I'd like to take a look through this actually and understand it.
I think even just getting the async Slackbot working on your machines locally, it would be kind of that's a worthwhile thing to do. Anyway, I've got to jump into the next meeting, but yeah, there's a trivial sort of regex bug there if you want to try fixing something
in the Slackbot, or is it?
It's in the Slackbot. Yeah, precisely in the Slackbot. The Slackbot at the moment, like if you do the wrong number of spaces in the when you ask it to start the new vote, it dies. It's silly. So like at the moment here, like the regex, it kind of where is it? Start new vote. Control F. Start new. Like here, I do this match here. Yeah. And so like this is like really, you've got to have exactly one space before and after. So all of these spaces could be, you know, like /s plus for regex thing would be the simple fix for that. Anyway, I got to run to this next meeting. I guess I'll leave. Adrian, you maybe haven't started Hangouts before, or maybe Michael, you can start a Hangout, and Adrian might join you.
Yeah, that'll work, Michael.
All right. Cool. All right. And either way, I'll see you on Sunday, Adrian, and I'll be running scrums as well over the weekend. So,
is there anyone run tomorrow? Is it 2:00 now? I mean, I'll be free tomorrow, so I can get involved with that.
Cool.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye for now.
Bye.